Hello and welcome to our next edition of a video here, which really is going to be your first guitar lesson. And this isn't going to be the most exciting video in the world, but it's something where if you're just starting out learning how to play guitar, very important to understand, a lot of the basics. It's going to help make your journey significantly easier. So today what we're really going to be talking about are really just the different components of a guitar. We're pretty much going to go top to bottom. We'll talk internals and just give you a really good understanding of the tool that you're going to be using. Because it's going to help making learning much easier, especially when you're hearing certain terms and not necessarily knowing what they're talking about. So very important to know what these items are, as well as what their function is and what they do. So to get started, today we're just going to be using a couple different examples. This is my 2019 R9, which is a Gibson Les Paul 1959 reissue. Really amazing guitar. So anyway, start right up here at the top. This right here, this black piece at the top, this is called your headstock. Every single guitar is going to have a headstock. They're all going to look different, but that's what this is. The headstock is here to, let me cut that back just a second. There are some headless guitars. I think like Kiesel makes some. We're not talking about anything crazy like that. So your headstock is really here to hold your tuning pegs, which are what these items, these knobs here on the side are. Some guitars are going to have a 3 and 3, like this, 3 on each side. We're not talking 7-string, 8-string, 12-string, any of that today. We're focusing on 6-string. So some are going to have 3 on each side, just like this. Some on a Fender style guitar, like I have here right next to me, you're going to have all 6 just going in line. But so these are going to hold your tuning pegs. Obviously, those are where your strings are pulling through. You're turning these knobs to then get to your desired tuning and hold your strings in tension. So the headstock's a pretty simple piece. Now on like a Les Paul style guitar, and a lot of brands actually, you're going to have like another little plastic cover here at the base. This is what's called a truss rod cover. I'm going to show a video here of what it looks like with this cover off. But what your truss rod cover is, obviously, it's going to cover up that cavity, because that would be an eyesore otherwise. And your truss rod is exactly what it sounds like. It's a metal rod or it's a carbon fiber rod, depending on the manufacturer, that's actually going to run all the way through your neck, underneath your fretboard. And what that's designed to do is it gives more rigidity and support and structure to your neck, but it's also going to allow for adjustments, because wood can move and it can bow depending on a lot of different factors. So that truss rod is there to where if your neck starts to either bow and become concave or become convex, that can lead to a lot of playability issues. You can make adjustments to your truss rod to help and straighten your neck back out, which is then going to allow you to keep a straight neck. So a very important piece. The next piece down, you have this piece right here. That's called your nut. These can be made out of plastic, bone, tusk, brass, all sorts of different materials. But what your nut is here for, it has little slots through it. If you look closely on your guitar or on this one, it has 6 individually filed slots. And that's where your strings are running through. And with that's, one thing that's for tuning stability. It also helps to keep all of your strings properly in line, because they need to be perfectly in line and perfectly spaced out on your neck to be able to have a playable guitar. So that's what you're going to have here on your nut, and that is essentially what it's used for. Now, if the nut on your guitar was not filed well, that can lead to a lot of playability issues and tuning stability issues. If that nut is too high or too low, that's going to affect the action on your guitar. And your action is your string height from pretty much the top of a fret here, which we're going to talk about in a second, to the bottom of your string. And if your action is too high, playing is incredibly difficult. If your action is too low, you're going to have all sorts of buzzing and noise, and it's just going to be not great. So you want to have a good happy medium. But so that's where this nut can become very important. And these can all be changed out. Some people say they have different tonal characteristics, things like that. Typically, like a bone nut or a tusk nut is going to give you better tuning stability compared to like a cheap plastic nut. So this is something that can be upgraded if you do have a less expensive guitar, maybe where you are having tuning issues. Something as simple as bringing to a luthier and getting a new nut can be helpful. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about here, so that covers the whole top of the guitar from here up. Next, we're going to go to the neck and the fingerboard and all the components. So your neck and your fingerboard obviously is this piece of wood that goes right here. Your neck is, I mean, even goes up to technically the back of the headstock, but your neck is where, where it joins to the body, whether you have a bolt-on neck or a set neck. This is a set neck here. Something like a Fender is going to have a bolt-on neck, and we'll show that in a second here. But that's what this is. Your neck is going to come in many different shapes and sizes. Every guitar is going to have its own characteristic, and you'll see things like, a C, a deep C, a D neck, a V neck. There's all sorts of things, and that all just really comes into play what the actual shape of how the wood here is carved. Some people like a really, really big neck. You'll often hear that called a baseball bat neck. Some people like a skinnier neck or a taller neck. That's something where you're just going to have to be able to feel and play to determine what size and style neck is going to be the best for you. So that being said, we're going to get here into the fingerboard now. So your fingerboard is often going to be a separate piece of wood, especially if you have a rosewood, an ebony, pal ferro. There's all sorts of different materials that your fretboard could be made out of, or your fingerboard. You're going to hear it called one of two things, fretboard or fingerboard. In this case, on the Les Paul, this is a mahogany fingerboard. When you have something like a Fender or something with a maple neck or a maple fretboard, this is all going to be one piece. So you can see here, there's no separation. That's not a separate piece of wood. This is all created out of just one single piece of wood. And again, some people are going to say there's different tone advantages and things like that, yada, 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 yada. We're not getting into all of that. But on something like this, you're going to have the rosewood here is going to be glued onto your neck. In this case, this is a mahogany neck. But so these are going to be two separate pieces of wood. So that's that. And then you're going to have these bad boys. These little weird metal lines that go all the way down your fingerboard. Those are called frets, or your fret wire. And those are typically, you'll see, stainless steel is really becoming a popular one. There's some different metal types that are being used. Again, you're going to hear people talk about different pros and cons of each one. Along with that, there are different size frets. You'll see medium jumbo, tall, skinny, and that's just, again, literally just the shape of this fret. And each one has its own playing characteristics. Some are going to be easier to bend on. Some are going to be easier to, for lead work, different things like that. That's just one of those things. You're going to just have to play the guitar, different guitars with different frets, see what works best for you. But yeah, so that's your fret, obviously. And then a lot of times if someone says, hey, play something at your third fret, boom, right there. So you're going to want to go just behind that third fret here. So here you go. You got your first. So this is all your first fret, second fret, third fret. Okay? Then something that's cosmetic, you have what's called fret inlays. Some guitars don't even have them. Some might just be a completely bare fingerboard. Something like this, these are called trapezoid inlays. Les Paul standard, stuff like that. They're known for having trapezoids. Some guitars might have a block inlay, that you might see custom inlays. You might see something like lightning bolt inlays, which I'll show you on my Angus Young SG. So that's what these fun little shapes are going up and down. You also have dot inlays, which, like on a Fender style guitar, you just have dots going all the way up. And they are there, it's cosmetic, and it's to help you get a better feel for where you're playing when you're playing guitar. You can very easily look down, and you're going to know exactly where you are based on those markers. You're also going to see here on the top of the neck, you see these dots that are running all the way up the neck, and they're going to correspond with the inlays. That's again, so while you're playing, when you're looking down, you can see that dot along with that inlay, and that's going to show you exactly where your hands are on this fingerboard. So that's a very, very helpful thing when you're playing, especially, if you're on maybe, let's say, like a darker stage, something like that. If you're playing live It's just they're placeholders essentially. So that is your neck and your fretboard. So next, we're going to get into the body of the guitar. So the body is the pretty stuff. So that's this. That's this whole big chunk of wood, all right here. And same thing here on the fender. So it's just that whole nice, pretty chunk of wood. That's where all the magic really starts to happen, and that's where all the electronics and things like that are going to be. So to start here at the top of the body. On a Les Paul style guitar or anything that's got more than one pickup on it, you're going to have what's called a pickup selector switch. And that's what this bad boy is right here. And you're going to see a couple different styles. This is your standard toggle switch. Some might have, like on a Fender, where it slides. But a typical toggle switch where it's going to be oriented to where if it's in the up position like that, which also says rhythm here on a Les Paul, that's here for your neck pickup. All the way at the bottom where it says treble, that is going to be your bridge pickup. If you have it in the middle, it's going to be a combination of both. And that's all other stuff. We'll talk more about those combinations at another time. So that's your pickup selector switch. Then right here you have your neck pickup. Some guitars are going to have two different pickups, a neck and a bridge. Some are going to have just one in the bridge, or even some jazz guitars might just have one in the neck. Standard, what you're going to see is two pickups. Some Les Paul Customs have three, where you'll have one right here in the middle. But again, so we're going to look at two pickups here on this one, and then we'll talk the Fenders here in a minute. So these are called humbucker pickups. Humbuckers essentially are two single coils that have been, wound together to buck the hum. That's what they were initially designed for, way back in I think it was in the 50s. Old single coils were known to be very noisy. So they combined two single coils together to make them much more silent, and it created a different sound that became very, very popular. So that's what a humbucker is. Anytime you're going to see these are covered, when they're uncovered, they're literally going to look like two single coil pickups put together. To kind of show you that, so these are single coil pickups here. Fenders are very much known for that, especially Stratocasters like this is. This is a Fender Strat. So here, that's a single coil pickup. See, this has three single coils. Now picture if both of these single coils were touching. They were completely put together, and then that's how they were wound. That would be what a humbucker would look like. Different sound characteristics, of course, between the different types of pickups. Single coils are often going to be a little twangier, a little bit brighter sounding, which is a phenomenal sound. Everything has its place. Where humbuckers are going to be a little bit more full of a sound, and not quite as shrill. Could be one way of putting it. So that's going to be your big difference between your single coils and your humbuckers. Along with that, you're also going to have what's called a P90 pickup, which is another variation of a single coil. And a lot of times you're going to see them like this. This is what's called a dog ear P90, because it's got these little, these little triangles here at the ends. Those are called dog ears, so that's how they call that a dog ear P90. You'll also see P90s in what's called like a soap bar. So if you took away those dog ears and all you had was just a rectangle here, that would be your P90. And what that is, it's another type of single coil, but it often has a lot more of a bite to it. So just like a really nice, like rock and roll, pure rock and roll sound. P90s are phenomenal for that. So those are, your three main types of pickups. But so to get back into this here, so again, you got your neck pickup, then you're going to have your bridge pickup. Like you saw on that Harley Benton Jr., all that had was just a bridge pickup. So that's common in itself. So you have your two different pickups. There's plastic going around each pickup. That's called a pickup ring. Super, super simple. Some guitars don't have them, but most of them do. And that's there to, one, cosmetically, and two, that also, it holds the pickup and it secures the pickup to the body of the guitar. Going down a little bit more, so you have what's called your pick guard. On a Les Paul style, it's often going to be in a shape just like this. Some people take the pick guards off, some guitars don't have pick guards. But anytime you have a guitar that's got some type of material here, it's called a pick guard. And that's really designed, one, cosmetic, and two, so depending on how you strum and play, a lot of people might hit the body with their pick. this helps to protect that. So it helps you to protect you from scratching the pick guard. I'm sorry, from scratching the body. And that's just, you know, it's screwed into the body up top here. And then you have this little bracket here that gets screwed into the body as well. And then some guitars, again, like on a Fender style, or especially on a Strat, got a pretty big pick guard. So you have this entire white plastic piece that's going all the way around, made of different materials, of course, but that's what it's designed for. On a guitar like this actually holds all of the electronics as well. So you have your pickups are, you know, secured directly into it. You have your pots, your knobs, your pickup selector switch, all of that fun stuff. So let's move a little bit farther south. So like I mentioned, bridge pickup before. Here's your here's your bridge pickup right here. Oftentimes, you know, the neck and the bridge, they're wound to be a little bit different. Your neck pickup is often going to be a little bit darker sounding, but it can also give you like a really nice, just like thick, creamy sound. So a lot of, you know, really, really famous guitar solos are made with that, especially if you're playing a lot of blues. The bridge pickup here, this is typically like the lead pickup. So, I mean, this one normally has a lot more bite to it, and it's just, it can be a lot more aggressive sounding and just amazing. That being said, depending on how these pickups are wound, depending on the magnets that are used, things like that, a lot of different sounds can be had just depending on what variation you've got. Some are a lot hotter, which means they have a lot more of an output to them. You know, some are going to be in the middle, and some are going to be, you know, not as hot. So again, all just depending on your style and what you're going for here. So that's going to be your bridge pickup. Going down a little bit from there, you have these two fun pieces right here. So this is called your bridge and your tailpiece. So this is your bridge right here, and then that's going to be your tailpiece. Some guitars are only going to have just a tailpiece, like on the Les Paul Jr., which I will pull this around here. Typically a lot more like vintage style stuff, this is how it is. All you're going to have is just a tailpiece, and this is called a wrap tailpiece. So where the string is going to go in under here, comes through and wraps over. So this is what's going to be your bridge and your tailpiece all in one. This is a little bit of a more modern variation of it, to where it does have your saddles, which we'll talk about in a minute. So that way it allows you to adjust things a little bit, better. Now on a standard bridge, so you're going to see, you're going to have what's called saddles, which those are these little metal pieces, these individual metal pieces in here that have a tiny little notch. And in that little notch is where the string is going to sit. So that's going to help to keep them in line. That also is going to help you with your intonation, which that's going to be a subject for another video, but essentially intonation is just how well the guitar stays in tune as you're playing up the neck. And you can adjust these saddles as well to adjust for that intonation. But that's what that bridge is for. There are different styles of bridge. You know, there's an ABR1, there's a Tune-O-Matic, there's Nashville. You know, there's all sorts of different variations. That's again another subject for another time. But yeah, so that's what your bridge is here for. And you can also adjust the action with the bridge. So on one like this, it has these little wheels on both sides here, and that can be raised or lowered to adjust your action. Now your tailpiece is kind of, you know, it's kind of what it sounds like. It's there at the back end of everything. This is where your strings are actually running through, and it's just another point to hold everything. A lot of folks, when you have a bridge and a tailpiece, typically you're going to have better tuning stability, and you're going to be able to, you know, some people say you'll get more tone out of having it that way, because, you know, you'll have your tailpiece all the way down here on the body. The vibrations can transfer through the wood, yada 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 yada. That's a whole other thing in and of itself. So that's what your tailpiece is here for. And, you know, your tailpiece is just going to secure to these two screws right here. These are what are drilled into the body, and those can be adjusted up or down as well, just depending on, depending on what you believe. Historically, they're all the way down here into the body. So that kind of covers all of this fun stuff. The next important part here you've got these, in this case, you have these 4 knobs. These are your volume and tone knobs. You're going to have a volume and a tone knob for each pickup in this case. These top knobs, these are going to be for your neck pickup. The bottom knobs are going to be for your bridge. Historically, the ones here closest to you, closest to the pickups, these are your volume knobs right here. Then these are going to be your tone knobs here on the side. They're going to do exactly what they sound like. So, you know, as you move your volume knob from either all the way up at a 10, or you can bring it all the way down to, you know, 0, you know, as you do that, it's going to pull volume off of the pickup you have selected, and it can clean them up as well. So if you're playing something that's got, you know, more crunch, more overdrive and distortion to it, by messing with these volume knobs, you can clean that up quite a lot. And you'll see a lot of the best guitarists out there, they're constantly fiddling with these knobs to get the exact tone that they want. Now your tone knobs, again, are going to do exactly that. When you have them set all the way on 10, it's nothing's being affected essentially. You're hearing the pickup as it is designed. As you then start to lower that tone, you have a capacitor that's in the electronics, which I'm going to show all the electronics here in a minute. That capacitor helps to pull some of the treble out, and that's really where it can start to darken up the tone quite a bit. So sometimes if you're playing a guitar and you're, you know, depending on the pickup where you're playing, it just sounds just really shrill, really bright, and it's just a little too much. Sometimes just a little tweak on that tone knob is enough for you to really shape your tone and get it exactly where you want to get it. So that's what these knobs are for. If you have something where if you're going to play with multiple pickups, so like have it in the middle position here, you can mess with this significantly and make all sorts of fun noises. You could have, you know, your neck pickup on a 10, your bridge pickup on a 5, and you then have the combination of the two or whatever you then choose to do. So that's everything with that. And right here, this is your output jack, the guitar's output jack, which is then wired in with all of the electronics here. This is where you're plugging your cable into to then, you know, plug straight into your amp. So that'll kind of lead us into, you know, I guess on the bottom here, so you'll have your strap locks. So you'll have one right here, and then on a Les Paul, the other one's going to be right up here, and that's where you connect your straps to. So that essentially is going to cover everything from, you know, the front of the guitar. On the back, on a Les Paul style guitar, you're going to have 2 different cutouts that are going to have covers on them. So this is your electronic cavity right here. This is where your pots, your caps, all of your wiring is really going to be had. This one up here, this is where your pickup selector switch is. So if you see, that's right there. So this is where the switch itself actually goes in. So that's that for on a Les Paul style guitar. If you're going to do it on like a Strat style, everything is basically exactly the same. You're going to have 3 different pickups traditionally. You're going to have your pickup selectors down here, and you have 5 different options. You can either pick just the bridge, just the middle, just the neck, or you can do the bridge and the middle, or the middle and the neck. A lot of different combinations. You have, in this case, you have your master volume right here, and then you have a tone knob, which is going to be for whichever pickup you're on, and then you're going to have a master tone knob as well. You have your output jack is going to be right here instead of on the side, and this is going to be a bridge and tail piece all in one. This is what's going to have a tremolo arm on it, or a whammy bar, which that's what this bad boy is right here. But you still have your saddles. The saddles are all individually adjustable, so you can adjust your intonation, you can adjust your action, and do what you need to do from there. So that is essentially, you know, most Fender style guitars, you know, that's how they're going to be unless you have like a Tele or something like that. So from there, we're going to go into the back electronics. All right, so now we have our covers off so you can kind of see the inside. So here's the cavity for your pickup selector switch. It is incredibly fun to look at. You have your switch, you know, super fun. The wires are going to run off it, and then it is it's all drilled out into the body here that you can't see. All the wiring is going to go run through here, and then it's going to run through channels underneath here along with your pickup wiring, and that's going to bring you into your main electronics cavity right here, which you can see there's all sorts of stuff here. So that's the hole right there where all your wires are going to come out of. So you have these shiny things right here, these 4 circles. Those are called your pots or your potentiometers. Those are, you know, the knobs that you're messing with on your volume and your tone. So those are your potentiometers. Then you have these black pieces with all these fun colors on them. Those are called your capacitors, and there are different types. These are known as kind of like a bumblebee capacitor or paper and oil capacitor. You also have orange drop, and there's all different sorts of different ones, again, depending on just the guitar and what you're going for. So your pots are going to be wired in here with your with the capacitors, and then of course you have the wiring going out to your output jack as well. So the electronic's not as important to fully grasp. Some people love knowing everything about their wiring. Some people don't really care. They just want to play the guitar. So that's why I figured I would show all of that. I'm not going to show the inside of the Fender just because there's a whole bunch of screws on there, and who's got time for all that? So I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, this isn't the sexiest lesson in the world. It's a lot of information, a lot of talking, but it's all very important stuff to know and understand, so you can learn better. When you know the ins and outs of your instrument, you're going to be a better overall player. So next lesson we're going to start diving into actually how you start playing. We'll talk the differences between all of the strings. We'll talk how to tune a guitar, and we'll talk getting started essentially now that you know the components of your tool. So I hope y'all enjoyed. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all on the next lesson.